Tell me, what's the biggest obstacle for you right now? Before I go into all of that.
Yeah. So you want me to answer with what I said about my headspace?
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever your biggest obstacle is right now, you just put into some words that, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really just my headspace is the only thing that's not keeping me on track. I've got my routine, I've got my meal prep, I've got my shop, and I'm okay with what I'm eating. I'm okay with the workouts. I just get to that stage where I'm like, man, am I ever going to be able to cook a cake and eat it? Am I ever going to be able to have a glass of wine again? Am I ever going to be able to go out for dinner? Like, is this my life forever?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I just go screw it and eat the brownie.
Yeah. This is good. I love it. I love getting these kinds of questions because, like, what it shows me is that you've been compliant for a good period of time now.
I go really well during the week, and then I get that headspace, and on the weekend I'll have a blowout day. And
yeah.
I mean, I haven't done that for probably the last 2 to 3 weeks, but before that, and I would just yo-yo. I'd be down 2 kilos, up 2 kilos, down 2 kilos, up 2 kilos, and it just drives me insane.
Yeah. So you wouldn't be asking these questions if you weren't doing it. So that's a really good sign for me to see that you have these questions going through your head. I'll read out the comment and then we'll discuss it. So you said, will I ever be able to enjoy a few wines? Will I ever be able to bake? Will I not lose weight if I go out for dinner? Will I put all my weight on if I give into any of these things? And then you start to self-sabotage and think that you can't do it. Did you get the email that I sent you back based on those questions?
Yeah, I did. I read it this morning and it was very good.
Was it?
Yeah, made sense.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So
what I want you to think about, and then I want you to think, everyone else watching this to think about, is if you took your body as ones and zeros right now, the way it feels, the way it functions, the way it looks, and you call that your running balance. That's essentially your bank account, okay? And if you took that running balance and you then looked back on all the transactions that you've made up until this point, there will be things that you've probably transacted on too many times, right? And now you're at a period where you've gotten to a place where you're like, okay, I want to improve this. I want to improve whether it's health, body shape, energy levels. So there are some transactions that you're going to have to not make for a while, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to never make them again. It's kind of like having a credit card problem. You need to chop up that credit card to begin with, but then you start to learn how to use money properly, and you make buckets in your bank account, and you start to spend money on certain areas, and then you've got, other things working for you here and there. So inside of your body, what we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, well, let's just hold up a little bit on the few wines and ask whether or not you're having those wines because you're really enjoying them, or is the enjoyment a mask for a coping mechanism or some form of regulation? Did that land with you when I said that?
Yeah, it totally made sense, because it was typically just a habit, like the wine especially. I mean, I love going out for dinner. I love socializing with my girlfriends and stuff like that. So it's an ideal time at the moment, being in lockdown, to be able to break all those habits. A couple of people have said, oh, let's jump online and have a Zoom drink together. And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't even be bothered. Like, that doesn't do anything for me at the moment, because I just can't see the point.
Yeah. And then when you get into this point and you've made that decision, you can start to then think about, oh, all right, well, if I say no, that's putting another yes in the bank.
Yeah.
You build up those no's enough, and then finally when you do say the yes, it's worth it.
Yeah. I think the way I've got to look at it, sorry, like we had Silverside the last 2 nights. and the guys have mashed potatoes with it. And I'm like looking at the mashed potato going, if I even have one spoonful, I bet you I don't lose any weight this week. It's just
Yeah.
procrastinating over the smallest things, thinking that it won't make any difference.
Yep. And I totally get that, because as I mentioned earlier, I've been through the ringer when it comes to diets, and I used to sweat the small stuff but not sweat the big stuff. So I'd worry about the potato on my plate, but then I'd go and have a whole pizza at 3 a.m. in the morning, after flashies in the city, in Adelaide. Like, I'd do something crazy stupid like that. So we all have that dysmorphia, if you want to put a label on it, where we will really focus in on the small stuff and then not necessarily focus on the forest from the trees. So I would always try to zoom out when you're having those arguments with yourself. Just zoom out and try and gain some perspective, and ask yourself,
look at the whole day and the whole week.
Look at the whole day, look at the whole week, and rather than focusing on that decision right in front of you or that step forward. It's funny, this thing, because it does come down a lot to being able to regulate yourself and your emotions. Like, we all act off emotions, no matter how smart you think you are. Everything goes through the emotional brain before it gets to the logic. So if you can't break that pattern of reaction, then you'll never get anywhere with anything in life. So the challenge right now for you here is to be able to gain that perspective. And I think you're probably having all these questions right now because you are actually working on it. If you weren't working on these things, you wouldn't have these questions. So that's a really good sign. I could tell you right now that if you had that potato last night, you wouldn't have impacted your weight.
Well, I ended up having a spoonful last night and a spoonful today, and I figured the amount I've been moving lately is not going to affect that. And the other stuff that I've given up is probably way better than that.
Yeah. And look, I want to show you this, and I want to show everyone watching this, because we don't track weight to see it go down every week. That's not the purpose for tracking weight. The reason I get you guys to track weight is because when you actually look at how much weight you lose compared to how much your body shape changes, your weight will change really slowly. And it comes in waves. It doesn't come in a straight drop. So if you take a look at the screen here, these are the weight entries for all of my one-on-one clients over the last year. And what you'll see there is the average weight over, let's take a look at Kerry. Average weight January 80, 78, 77.5, 76.5. These are monthly. So she's losing a kilo a month, right? She didn't lose a kilo that month. That was a really crappy month. Dead of winter and all the lockdowns, and here as well. Okay, but if you zoom in, we've got 80.3, 80.3, 80.6, 79.2. Had she have judged her performance off those 3 weeks there, she would think, man, this isn't working. What the hell's going on? But this is how the body loses weight. The body doesn't lose weight every single week. The body dumps weight, and it dumps weight every 3 to 4 weeks. So you see here, you got 78.8, 78.4, 79, 78.3. Like, what happened there? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it comes again, right? So the reason we track weight is to just be able to take that whole weight issue and get close enough to it that it becomes irrelevant. And I had to do this to get myself out of that whole cycle of jumping on the scales and then, you know, obsessing over what I ate. And if I think back to when I really worked on my body dysmorphia and my eating habits, I remember getting a gift. It was a pack of chocolate covered coffee beans, and I stopped myself. I was going to eat them all. I stopped myself and I was like, you know what? Instead of chucking them out or scoffing them all, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do something that I would never have done in the past. And that was, I'm going to eat one a day for the next 30 days. There was 30 coffee beans that were covered in chocolate. So I put in my center console and I was like, I'm going to prove something to myself here. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to look awesome. And I'm going to eat a chocolate coffee bean every day. And I did it. and it wasn't a massive significant thing from the outside looking in, but to me, to be able to prove that to myself, it was one part of the evolving story of just, you know, mending that relationship with food, mending that relationship with my body. And I really very recently, you know, as I was saying before with you, Rachel, is, you know, and Sarah, you could probably almost resonate with this. I got into a place with MP, metabolic precision, where I would only eat carbs if it was around a workout. And if I didn't train hard enough, I wouldn't give myself those carbs. And that was, you know, I was getting into a really bad place with that. And I took one look at myself and I was like, is the problem the diet or is the problem me? And the problem was me. And I made a point over the last 12 months to get more active, ride my bike to work, and eat carbs whenever the hell I wanted to eat them. And I proved myself there that if I just stayed active, I could eat relatively with a lot of freedom without necessarily putting on weight and all that kind of stuff. So what you guys are going to embark on is getting really close to the data and seeing the forest from the trees. You start to sort of, I call it seeing the matrix, because you see through all the crap that you are being told and are listening to, and you start to listen to yourself and you start to read your body.
Yeah.
I went on a massive tangent there.
Session with the scales, so.
Yeah. So it's fighting fire with fire. It's not giving into the story that you shouldn't worry about your weight, and then packing on 20 kilos, not worrying about your weight. And then it's not also giving into the story that you need to be on those scales and your whole life revolves around it. It's just dancing with it, just going in there, dancing with the devil and having fun with it, and then learning how to gain control of that. So if you've had a problem with the scales for a long time, let's get close to those scales now, and let's make those scales your bitch.
They live in my bottom bathroom drawer, so I don't have to see them until I need them.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I would get on them every day.
Yeah. And it's embarrassing to admit, but I've done stupid shit like jumping on the scales, going to the toilet, coming back to the scales, weighing myself, eating a meal, weighing myself after the meal to see the difference, and subtracting, doing all these stupid mathematical equations in my head, because I was just so obsessed with my body and the food and the weight. Like, and it's crazy. It's crazy but it's not crazy until you are actually on the other side of it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes from this for you, because it looks like you're on a really good path.
Hope so.
Have I solved your biggest obstacle so far for this week?
Yeah, that's the way I've been looking at it today. So I've stayed on track. So
brilliant. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I'll touch in with Rachel, Sarah. Has anything come up for you guys since listening to that you wanted to weigh in on or ask or?
Yeah, I've been a little bit wary of carbs, but at the same time, I'm trying to give myself grace because I know that, breastfeeding and all the rest, I have no idea what my energy requirements are. So, since I've started with you, I've been a little bit more aware of my carbs, but I'm trying to write down absolutely everything so that then I do have that feedback of what's working and what's not.
Yeah. And to the point where you'll find that you might even have to have carbs in a certain meal, and that was the evolution that Paul Cribb tried to impart onto his trainers, but didn't quite land. You can bring those carbs outside the window, especially in circumstances like you are in right now.
Yeah.
You just need to pay close attention to your biofeedback.
Yeah,
So what your energy levels
exactly.
are like, what your hunger levels are like, and so forth. Yeah. Cool.
Information's power, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well done, mate. Rachel.
Cool.
Well, as someone who can't live without carbs, I'm afraid I'm not giving them up. But I was just thinking, if I try and give my family spaghetti bolognese without pasta, like all hell might break loose. So yeah, but I have been adding a lot of salad to my meals as a way to counteract that. So I think that's been my increased balance there. So I've been finding that really good to do.
Yeah, totally. And when you think of it in that perspective, like if you look at a really traditional American style Italian meal, which is just full of meat and pasta and there's no vegetables, you got to question yourself, is the problem the meat and the pasta, or is the problem just simply the lack of vegetables? Because if you add veggies, then the ratio of that meal changes.
That's right.
And the ratio at the end of the day is what matters. Yeah. So that's why I'll never tell you guys to cut anything out, because if I just give you suggestions on what to add, the other stuff starts to fade away.